We're back here with DGST 301N, AI in Society, and really excited about today's guest speaker. This is somebody that I've been excited about bringing in, and I've been hoping to be able to bring in as a guest speaker because I've been working with him for the last 2.5 years, maybe, I think? Yeah. So this is Dr. Steve Gladis, and I've known him for quite a while, for more than a couple of years, but probably about 2.5 years ago, and I gave a talk about AI in education, one of the early discussions that we had, and Steve afterwards reached out and said, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit more, and I think he and I have been meeting almost weekly ever since, and had a great time working on a number of projects together, running workshops for people in business, and working with different enterprises and organizations, and he's connected me and helped mentor me in such important ways that I just am so appreciative. It's just really invaluable, the kind of guidance that he's provided me. And I know that there's even more that he can provide to all of you as you're starting to think about your careers. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Gladis. He has one of the most interesting backgrounds of anybody that I know. He served in the Marine Corps. He was an FBI agent for a number of years. He even was a speechwriter for the head of the FBI. He went back and got his doctorate in education and leadership at George Mason University, if I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. And has worked as a faculty member and dean for UVA's Northern Virginia campus, as well as a faculty member for George Mason University. And he's the founder of Steve Gladis Leadership Partners, and it's done a lot of work in executive coaching and executive leadership. And I can't even tell you, I don't know that I could count the number of books that this man has written. He's the most prolific writer I know of anybody in academia. He's always writing a new book and working on something new. One of his most recent was a book called Brides of War, that is based at Mary Washington College back during the end of the Vietnam War. Really great read. I was able to read an early version of it, and really fantastic. And basing it at Mary Washington was so important because of the connection with Quantico. He's writing another book already in progress, working on one with leadership and thinking about communication patterns. And he has a wealth of information to not only talk about in terms of general leadership, but also what are the leadership skills you're going to need in an AI world. So please join me in welcoming my friend and somebody who I look up to with great admiration, Dr. Steve Gladis.
I hope you recorded that and you'll send it to my mother. Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to tell you I know a lot of folks in business and academia, and I think Anand is the quintessential teacher here, and having me here, and the reason that not that you exist, but that you're here today because of this course is all because of that guy right there. Give him a round of applause because he's one of the best. A real gem of a guy, and I mean that. And my wife and I got very interested in AI after I watched his Mary talk, right? And I called him up and said, hey, I need to know more about this. And about 2.5 years ago, we started messing with this stuff together. And my wife and I recently gave a fair-sized donation to Mary Washington to start the center here, for which he's the head of right now. And we've gotten very active in it, and I've become an AI freak. I mean, I use this stuff all the time, and I talk to it, and it talks to me. It's crazy stuff. But I think our thinking on it was, when we decided to fund things here, was that you guys are, I was a liberal arts graduate from Providence College, PC. And when you hit the marketplace, it's good to have the skills that everybody is going to need to survive. And that's what we thought, that everybody coming out of here should have the best skills possible to compete in the marketplace. Okay. All right, so that's my opening ad. So let's do some more. Put down your stuff. Stand up for me. Everybody stand up, okay? If you got anything in your hands, put it down. Don't hurt yourself here. You're gonna. Okay, so my fellow Marine over here is going to give me a little license today. I'm going to teach you in the Marine Corps, when a commander gets a sit rep from somebody, or he's giving a report to somebody, and he wants to know if somebody's understood it. The Marines will say "hoo-ah." Now we say it in various ways. I mean, civilianizing this for this group. The word is who-ah. The way I teach it is who-ah. All right, it's two words, the word who and the word ah, because it's easy for you guys to get. Now, it's like saying amen in church, right? You know what I'm talking about here. I say amen, you all go amen. That means that we're communicating back and forth, right? So the first thing is the word, you say the word who, and you don't say like, who left the refrigerator open, or whose clothes are on the floor. It's more like, who let the dogs out? Okay, so who. All right, so on 3, I want you to say who real loud. 1, 2, 3, who. That was pretty wimpy. 1, 2, 3, who. Way better. Okay, now the ah is more like, I just mowed the lawn, and I just had a beer or water, I don't know, whatever you drink, and you say you just you kind of stretch it out, okay? So on 3, we're just going to say 1, 2, 3, That little more like this. Okay, there you go. All right, so put it together, and it's hoo-ah, hoo-ah. Okay, on 3, I want you to say it real loud. 1, 2, 3, hoo-ah. Okay, 1, 2, 3, hoo-ah. And then pump your arms. Say it 3 times and pump your arms. 1, 2, 3, hoo-ah, hoo-ah, hoo-ah. All right, take a seat. Give yourselves a round of applause. Now, when I ask you as I go through this, I'm going to say to you, did you get that? Can I get a hoo-ah? And you're going to yell out, hoo-ah. Do a little bit of, did you get that? Give me a hoo-ah. Hoo-ah. That's it. Now we got it. Okay. So now I think we can pass those things out. Thanks, hon. In a world where everybody knows everything about everything all the time, which is where we are right now, right? If you believe with Sam Altman, right? We have somewhere between a college level and a PhD level AI that's responding to us all the time. So you really don't need experts anymore. Oh, we actually do need them, but we don't need them the way we used to need them, right? Give me a hoo-ah. Hoo-ah. Okay, it's different now, right? Because people know everything. And education and knowledge has been kind of homogenized, right? Where a kid in Idaho or a kid in China has the same, as long as they have access to the internet, has the same equal footing when it comes to knowledge. So the question really is, and this is I just did an essay on this it'll be coming out next week. The question really is, who's going to dominate in this world of technology? Yeah, sure, some technology folks, right? I mean, the guys that actually are creating code and things like that. But the real winners in this are going to be the leaders, you all in this room. If you become a leader, well, first of all, most work gets done in a company. Let's try this out for a second. Write down where do you think most work in a company takes place? Does it take place at the executive level? Does it take place at the managerial level? Does it take place at the team level? Does it take place at the individual level? Write down in your idea, where do you think this takes place? Where do you think great leadership takes place? Write it down and then talk to the person next to you for like 2 minutes. Where does leadership in a company actually happen? Where does it happen in most companies, do you think? Talk to the person next to you. All right. So where do you think leadership takes place in teams? Where do you think the action is? You think it's at the executive level, the CEO level? Why not? I agree with you. You're shaking your head. Why not?
It's just a pie, and for it to be like company executive, I kind of put it as a pyramid.
Ah.
The bottom of the pyramid is the biggest, but that foundation leads its way up.
Yeah.
So I think leadership can come from individuals and go up to the executive, and that person just kind of coordinating stuff. Right?
Okay, so at the highest level, it's a lot of coordination, what we call in business policy, where they set policy and direction. Now that has an effect on leadership down, but that's probably not where all leadership takes place. Where do you think it takes place? You had a couple things. I heard you.
I thought it was at the lower level, so like you are interacting with people at your own level.
Yeah.
That's where
Everybody else talk about that happening at the lower level, at the kind of like team level, right? Where there's 3 or 4 of you working on a project together. Like you guys probably do that in the class, right? You probably team up and have group projects, right? And you have people who actually do the project and people who just fake it, right? I mean, I taught at George Mason for 25 years. I get that. I had an interesting grading policy that I'll tell you about if I have time later on to deal with that. But leadership takes place oftentimes at the team level. And that's where you guys are going to have a chance to shine when you go to work in a corporation. You're going to get thrown on teams. And your performance on those teams, people are going to keep track of how well you do on those teams. What I want to give you today is the formula. I've worked with Harvard and I worked with a bunch of other researchers to give you a sense of how that leadership works. If you want to be an excellent team leader, this is the formula that we're going to give you today. And this is the basis. The basis for this is a number of years of research, about 20, now 30 books that we've done. And it's all connected to some research that just came out of Harvard, okay? After 25 years of playing with this stuff. So, all right, so here we go. Let's talk about leadership. First of all leadership starts with trust. All right, it starts with trust. How many of you have ever had trust broken on you? Right. How's that feel? Pretty, what? It hurts. It's pretty devastating. And once it happens, trust takes years to build and takes minutes to break. It's one of the most volatile of the emotions that we have, and it's the most important one. Every single relationship you have, Anna and I, my wife and I, you and I, at this point, have a trust relationship until I break that trust in some way or another. I hope I don't. All right. Trust is composed of three things, okay? And so I want you to think of it as, go do this with your hands. Make a pyramid with your fingers. Yeah, like that. I call that the trust triangle. And the reason for the trust triangle is that if any of these sides don't work, the triangle collapses. All right? Let's talk about what those are. The first is character, okay? Character is the first level here. When we talk about character, what we're really talking about is, when you do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it. Say if you're working on a team at work, will you get your piece done? You know, can I rely on you? You've had people working in your groups at school that you couldn't rely on, and people did the work for them, and you hope that you never had them on another group again, right? Give me a hooah. Hooah. All right. So, basic character. Are you honest? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Do you show up? Do you do your fair share? That's the table stakes for coming at this stuff. The second level, this one here, this side here, the second side, is competence. If I'm going to work for you on your team, I gotta know that you know something about what I do. Nothing worse than, like in the Marine Corps, see somebody get promoted who didn't know what they were doing, and now they're giving you orders to, or it doesn't matter if it's the Marine Corps or not, or in school, or in your in a club that you're in, having somebody promoted as president who doesn't really know what the group does is very disheartening, right? So one of the things we want to know is, do you know the subject? Are you competent in the subject? And secondly, are you competent as an emotionally intelligent person? Do you understand who you are and how you come up? Are you self-aware? And are you self-restrained? And do you understand other people's emotions and how they're... And can you deal with other people? Can you deal with yourself? Some people aren't really good at dealing with themselves. They have a very different opinion about themselves than other people do, right? We call it unaware. The last one on this triangle, the last side is compassion. I won't go into all the definitions of compassion, but I'll tell you, basically it's this. Do you care enough about me to do something to help me? Not just see that I'm having a problem, not just feel bad that you're having a problem and sending me a note saying you're in my thoughts and prayers kind of thing, but would you actually do something to help me? Would you come over and babysit the kids? Would I go to the funeral? Would you make us some food? Would you help us? So compassion is the last one. So we call it the 3 C's, right? All right? The character, competence, and compassion. And those 3, if you have those 3, you have the basis for a trust relationship, and you're most likely going to succeed, even if you're not always the brightest bulb on the tree. I mean, I'm not. In fact, most people who end up as CEOs were B and C students in college, not A students. I mean, I'm not telling you not to try to get A's. I'm not saying that at all. But it's the B and C students that have good social interaction skills that ends up becoming CEOs of corporations. And at the very core of your leadership as a team leader is, can people trust you? Can people trust you? Ever work for somebody you didn't trust? Tell me about that. Which one of those three did they not have? Can you, yeah.
They didn't know what they were talking about.
Where was this? Where were you working with them?
I
Can you,
was working with kids. I was working in a school, and we had someone entirely new, halfway through the year, so they didn't know any of the stuff of how the school worked or how we all worked together. So having that little aspect of missing that first couple months was hard to get used to.
yeah, did not have wasn't competent in the subject, didn't understand what teaching was all about, right? What's another? Anybody have a different one where you didn't trust somebody that you worked with? Yeah, yeah, please.
The person I worked for had bias over certain people.
Had bias toward people, right? Did not know how to interact. So that would be probably that interpersonal competence that he lacked or she lacked, right? So an interpersonal lacking there. Yeah. Other ones. Yeah.
There was a lot of, I had a managerial job that had a lot of favoritism.
A lot of favoritism, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, there were certain people you would see one interaction with them,
Hmm.
and then there'd be a different interaction. It was very different.
It was very different.
And it was interesting because when I loved that job, they shifted. They were not a favoritism, but I would see them talk with me and then they'd talk to another person. It seemed much friendlier.
Just different. Treating people very unequally, right? Very unequally. Yeah. Trust is the cornerstone of leadership. If you're gonna focus on anything I say today, focus on trust. Establishing that you're reliable, you show up on time, you do the job. Secondly, that you know what the hell you're talking about. Can I say that in here? Where you know what the heck you're talking about, right? And you treat people fairly. It's part of that, right? No matter who they are. And that you're compassionate. The one that gets a lot of people in trouble is this compassion one. A lot of business. I do work with a lot of businesses, and a lot of times people they consider that if they pay you every 2 weeks, that's all they got to do. And I was giving a speech down south once again. Pay me every 2 weeks. I said, well, that's not enough. It's not enough. People have to think that you care about them. Nobody cares what you know until they know that you care, right? Give me a hoo-ah. Hoo-ah. Okay, you got trust down, right? All right. The second triangle here is let's go with people. Okay, do you treat people well? And this goes back to the two of you we're talking about recently. Do you treat people well? Are you fair? And more importantly, that do you when you put your team together, when you have a team, the best leaders have three things, and the way I remember it is DEA, because I used to work with DEA and FBI. Diverse. First is diversity. When you put a team together, you want to make sure your team is as diverse as you possibly can make it. Diverse, diverse, diverse. I don't care about what anybody says who's politically saying nutty things. Diversity, there is so much research around the power of diversity, it's not funny. Diversity makes things powerful. It keeps you from making huge errors. Because people who see life differently than you can show you the blind spots. Each one of us has what they call a scherza. It's a blind spot. You know, when you're driving a car, how you can't see a car coming for about 2 seconds. You can't see a car. That's called a scherza. And all of us have that in our personalities. There's stuff we can't see. And if you've ever been in a situation where you're talking to somebody and they say, "Hey, have you ever thought of this?" And you go, "Whoa, no, I never thought of that." Your scherza was being filled by somebody else, and that's what diversity does. We're talking about racial, we're talking about gender, and especially in the research that's been more recent, is diversity of behavioral diversity, or cognitive diversity, where people think differently and say, "Hey, have you thought of this?" Fortunately, both Anna and I married women who think very differently than we do, and on different subjects, and so the chance of us making an error is much less, because when we run it by them, though at some points in life it may be a little frustrating, they usually keep us from going over the edge, and we keep them from going over the edge, right? It's like if your friend says, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and you go, "Ever thought about this? Ever thought about that?" And they say, "Gee, I haven't," and you sort of calm them down. Well, that's diversity at work, really. Here's another thing for you to think about, especially Mary Washington College. What's the Mary Washington women to men ratio now? Do we know? Is it 60-40?
Probably about 60-40.
I think it's 60-40, which is interesting for what I'm going to say next. University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University research has been done on teams. They found that the ideal team is 60% women, 40% men. If you use gender as the factor, 60-40 is exactly the percentage of Mary Washington, which is kind of interesting. And they said to the extent that you can keep that as close as you can, you'll be better off as a team because you'll be far more balanced in the way people think differently. Men and women think differently, and there's chemical reasons for that and everything else. But the reality is, 60-40 is the number. When we walk into corporations today, and I do that fairly frequently, we walk in the boardrooms. It's usually 80-20, if that. 80% men, 20% women. Now what we tell those folks is that, yeah, sure, we'll coach your team, but we can't guarantee anything until you change the demographics because you have no, according to research at Harvard, the 25 years of research, you have almost no chance. You have 20% chance, which is almost flipping a coin. You have a 20% chance of making it without some kind of rebalanced gender differences. So interesting, huh? Mary Washington is about this. It's really at the same level as what she talks about in her research, and I'll have to look up her name, but I know you'll probably know her when I find it. So the first thing is your team diverse? Are you putting if you're a leader, are you putting teams together that are diverse? Secondly, are they engaged? This is not only for you as a leader, but for you as a participant in the team. One of the ways to be engaged. What makes you? How about this? What makes you engaged at whatever you do? What engages you? Like at George, what courses here at Mary Washington engage you, and why? Besides this course here, well, just I don't want to put you on the spot in front of him, but what courses engage you and why? Here at Mary Washington, I haven't while you've been here. Yeah.
I like when we get to apply our knowledge. Like I took a digital storytelling class that I really liked because we got to learn about it and then put it into practice.
You get to put it in practice, and do you like you like stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So being able to do storytelling is kind of fun because that's something you like to do. You're probably pretty good at it, I would guess, too, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Why else? Yeah, sir.
I'd probably say another one is economic analysis and doing research projects. That's something that's kind of
Economic analysis. God bless you. Because I'll tell you, for me, that would just I would have rather put pencils in my eye. but that appeals to you, right? Yeah, you're probably pretty good at it, right?
I try.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're being modest on me, buddy. Yeah.
Mine is literature, so sometimes literature classes, because I get to engage with other people and talk about the literature we are reading and what our opinions are on it, and I get to see other perspectives.
Do you like to read?
Yeah.
See, I figured that. What about you? Somebody had a hand up. No, yes, ma'am. And then, yeah, you first and then her. Oh, you're closer. you could bite me if you wanted to, so I got to take care of you first. Yeah.
I was going to say something similar. I'm doing history, and I really like hearing your perspective on people who see the world differently.
Yeah, seeing who like to see the world, and you probably see the world differently yourself. You like the, right? You like different stuff, right? Yeah.
I don't have a specific class example, but just any class that works as more of a conversation between the professor and the students rather than just
Yeah.
a lecture with
Guy talking to you, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm doing today.
Exactly.
Well, you want more of a conversation. You want more of a dialogue between the professor and you, right? That's why I kind of want to talk to you about. But what people tend to like is what they're good at. And listen, that's not a bad thing. I don't want you to think that's a bad thing. So how many of you have ever seen a baseball game before or know anything about baseball, right? So how much batting practice do you want to give to the pitcher? A lot or a little? A little. Why?
the pitcher.
Say that again. Who's that?
The pitcher. He doesn't do anything but pitch.
They don't. They're pitchers, and their job is to pitch. And pitchers, are not great hitters because of that. Because their job is to pitch the ball. Now you can spend a lot of time. You can get a pitcher who hits about 100 or 120, on the ratio, on the batter ratio. And you can maybe get him up to 150 if you throw a lot of hits at him. But you're going to waste a lot of his time when he could be practicing doing what? Pitching. Here's what one great researcher. Everybody ever heard of Gallup? Well, there's a firm. You will hear of it in your lifetime. It's called Gallup. They do a lot of surveys. They do a lot of studies. And what they did is they developed an assessment that I'm going to recommend you all take. You have to pay for it. And I don't get any money from Gallup to tell you this. But it's the Clifton's StrengthsFinder. It tells you what your strengths are and your cognitive strengths are, so that when you want to think about what you want to do, I give it to all my clients. Every client I have takes this. Yeah.
I've taken it at school, like in high school.
You took it in high school?
Yeah, they had it at like our.
Was it free?
Yeah, it was free.
You're lucky. It's like $50. I think it's like $50 now, but probably through Mason. I know at Mason it's free because we have a contract with Gallup. But even if you have to pay $50, it's best 50. One of the pretty good bet for $50. Okay, it's called the Clifton StrengthsFinder. Write it down because it's an important one for you to think about. Here's what you'll find out.
I think in the Career Center they sometimes offer that or something similar that you can find your strengths. It's a great way to identify.
Yeah. If any way you can get it, get it. You're paying a lot of money for school. $50 ain't going to break you, right? But if you get it for free, get it for free. When you take the Clifton StrengthsFinder, 50 million people have taken it. So they have a pretty good database, I'd say. And when you take it, and it's been highly validated, when you take it, it's going to tell you your top 5. It'll tell you it has like 24 strengths, or maybe it's 36 now. I can't remember. It'll give all your strengths from the best thing you are as your analyzer, or a team player, or this, that, and the other thing. It will give you them in rank order. I would pay attention to the top 5. The top 5 is usually what you want to pay attention to, and those top 5 will dictate kind of how you work best at a job. And you want to try to match a job, and maybe even match relationships, not one for one. One for one on the job, but in a relationship, you might want to find complementary relationships with other people. I made my daughter take these tests before she got married, and she got divorced in 5 years. So I don't know. I can't always count on everything. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if you take this assessment, it will tell you what you're good at, and what you want to do then when you get a job. Just get a job. In the beginning, get a job, and then in organizations, you can drift into jobs, find out what people do, and find out the place where you fit really well within that job. Let me tell you my story. I go in the FBI after my stint in the Marine Corps, and I wasn't a great FBI. I mean, I could do it, but I'm not an analytical guy. I'm a big picture, big story, big picture kind of guy. But I found out in the FBI that there were places where they needed people like that. They needed them teaching at the FBI Academy. They needed them in public affairs. They needed places like that. So while I got in there and I could survive as an agent, it wasn't my strong suit. I wasn't analytical. I wasn't good at picking up little pieces of data and putting them in bags and marking them and stuff. I wasn't good at that. But I was good at other stuff. So I drifted so I taught at the academy, and then I became the head of a unit down there. And then I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying, I grew where I was. I could be planted better than where I was. So get in, and then drift around and find where your strengths link up. Same when you put a team together. Your job is to use the strengths of your team. Don't try to. There's an old saying in the Marine Corps: never try to teach a pig how to sing, because you're never going to teach them how to sing, and you're just going to piss them off if you keep trying, right? So let's think about that as you build your team. Engagement's important. Matching people with their strengths, not their weaknesses. It's very important. And the last one on that triangle is, where are we here? Autonomy. People love autonomy. When you have a team, give them their mission and let them do their job. Don't micromanage them. The most frustrating, how many here have ever worked for somebody who's a micromanager? God, look at those hands go up. God, isn't it the worst? All right, somebody tell me about it. Hold on, I want a couple of people who haven't done it. Anybody in the back raising? Yeah, ma'am.
So I used to work for my mom because she used to own a store, and it was horrible because she would literally micromanage absolutely everything I would do. Like when I would be at the cashier, she would like be behind me, or if she was in her office, she had cameras inside the store, and you could like watch her move the cameras, and I would watch her move the camera to face her to see what she was doing.
So who was it? Was this your mother?
Yeah.
Is she still around? Is she still micromanaging?
No, I don't work for anyone.
You don't work for anymore, right? Which is there's a reason, right? That's a really difficult, proposition. Anybody else? Anybody else ever worked for a micromanager? Yeah.
I work for a company when sandwiches, Subway.
Subway. Yeah.
I learned, and I'm a fast learner.
Mm-hmm.
But she has such a way of wanting to do things that we didn't have autonomy. That she wanted to do this sandwich,
Her way, right? Yeah.
If it wasn't, she needed to follow.
Oh God, awful.
3 days in.
You quit 3 days in. This is what ends up happening. How many of you who raise your hands again if you work for a micromanager? Raise them higher for me, would you, so I can see them? Now take them down if you quit. If you quit, take them down. So a few of you stayed with it, right? You stayed with it.
Yeah.
We say that so, yeah. Well, what? Was it that bad? Was it bad?
No, I mean, it was annoying. But
Mm-hmm. So I guess it depends on how micromanaged you are. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is that when you hire people to do a job, let them do the damn job. You know, when they can't do it, then step in and say, hey, things aren't working well here. Let's take a look at this. But that's the second triangle. The second triangle is how do you treat people? Do you treat them well? Yes or no? Can they trust you? Yes or no? The third triangle here is culture. Can you build a culture? Cultures that are successful are safe. They make people feel safe, first of all. They make them feel connected, and then they make them feel purpose-driven, purposeful. All right? Safety is probably the most important one on this list, I think, and this one is, and the reason it's at the base is this notion of psychological, they call it psychological safety. And that is, do you feel confident enough with the leader, and would people, if you were the leader, would they feel confident enough of you to tell you the truth? Have you ever worked for somebody you're afraid to tell the truth to? Well, I have. I've worked for a couple of FBI folks that I worked for in my life that I wouldn't tell the truth to. I mean, if it were life and death, I would. But if we're in a meeting with a whole group and the meeting was going in one direction, there's no way I was going to step up and say. In fact, I did it once. All right, let me tell you what happened to me. All right? So we're at headquarters. I had just gotten shipped back from Cleveland, Ohio. I was in public affairs. Everybody was watching a videotape of the SAC in Detroit who had just been on national TV talking about a crisis situation. The guy was 65 years old, the agent in charge. Had been going on for 2 days. He was exhausted, and yeah, he didn't do a great job as a spokesman. The guy was exhausted, but he did a decent job. The headquarters guys were all sitting in suits on a Monday morning, all well rested from the thing, and they showed the video, and the head of our public affairs, who was very dapper and very full of himself, said, he doesn't look like a great representative of the FBI. He looks disheveled. He looks this and he looks that. What do you think? He turns to the crowd. What do you think they're going to say? Well, I think he needs to sharpen up. They all bolstered what he said, right? Because they were wimps. I was new. I would just come from the field. I've been through this. I was the head of Cleveland, Ohio's, public affairs office. I've been through this. I know what it was like. So I stood up and said, I think you guys are full of... Yeah, anyway. I think this poor guy has been up all night long. He should never have been out there by himself. Somebody else should have been doing it. But yeah, he didn't do a great job, but he was exhausted. And you need a little more compassion in your life than this. You could have heard a pin drop. It was like being in a cathedral, all alone in a pin drop. And I knew right then and there I was screwed. And you know what? 2 months later, I was shipped out to Quantico, which was the best firing that's ever happened to me. They pushed me out of headquarters. They pushed me to Quantico. Best thing that ever happened to me. To this day, I'm so grateful I spoke up. But that was an example of speaking up when it wasn't in my best interest. I was doing it because I thought it was the right thing, but I wasn't smart enough to know about psychological safety. Now, I'd probably do it all over again, to be honest with you. But the point is, I'm trying to tell you, is that when people work for you, give them psychological safety. Allow them to speak up. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I'm going to check the time here so I don't screw it. Are we okay?
2:38.
Oh, is that it? That's it now?
minutes.
Oh, okay, good. So I had a heart problem, and it was in an operating room. They were bringing me in for surgery. Pretty important surgery. When you work on your heart, it's always important, right? And I had read some research about this stuff, and it said that if the operating team, who usually is ad hoc in most hospitals, knows who you are and has psychological safety, the operation will go better. So they wheeled me into the operating room, and I had just done the research on this. And the anesthesiologist said, move over to the operating table. And I said, no, not right now. I'm going to say something first. I sat up, and they didn't know what the hell to do. And I said, my name's Steve Gladis. You're working on my heart today. I want you to do a good job. And I'm going to be unconscious, by the way, in about 2 minutes here. And I said, I want you to speak up if you see something going wrong. Can everybody agree to that? And they shook their heads, and I said to the surgeon, are you okay with that? And of course, I was putting them on the spot. He said, oh, yeah, of course, I want to. In lots of hospitals, that doesn't happen. And nurses don't speak up when they see things, and people die because they don't want to counter the doctor. That's very common, more common than you want to believe in hospitals. Give people psychological safety if you want truth, all right? I'm going to move along here because I want to get you guys out of here fast or on time. The second one is make people feel connected so that they belong. People want to feel like they belong to your organization. By belonging and being connected and feeling belong, I like belong better than connected now, but because anybody ever hear of Brené Brown? No. Look her up on TED Talks. Brené, B-R-E-N-E Brown. You will be glad you did. Brené Brown. She talks about belonging. Belonging is being able to be who you are in any organization and having people treat you well because of who you are, not acting into the job. Not having to act to be somebody else, to be liked by people. Does that make sense? Give me a hooah. All right. So this idea of making people feel like they belong, and finally that they're purpose-driven. That what they do is important not only to them but to the rest of the world. If you feel like you've got a job that's purpose-driven, that's why teachers teach for far more money than they can make in business. As much as I try to get them to get out of teaching and go to business, they don't, because they feel a greater sense of purpose, and in fact, they're probably happier teaching than they would be in business. The last one is strategy. A leader without strategy, without a vision of where they're going, is pretty useless. And I'm not going to beat this up too much today, but strategy is about what's our mission, why do we exist, what are our goals, and what are our objectives. Now, I know that's a lot. This is a lot of information in a very short period of time. I've written about it in an essay that will come out. If you're on LinkedIn and you want to read the essay, I guess we could send it to them, and we'll send you the essay that covers this stuff. But this is the essence. These 4 elements come from a book that I did called The 4 Elements of Great Team Leaders. If you're interested, the book's only about 60 pages long, and there's an executive summary up front. You all are going to be leading. You're going to be leading the world that I live in, and that Anand lives in, as we age out and we're sailing around the world doing whatever we do when we retire. You're going to be leading that world, and what I want you to do is just to have an understanding of what you're going to need to know in order to live in that world. I wish you luck, and I will be seeing you. I'm hoping again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gladis. There are a couple of reasons why I wanted him to speak with you all today, because not only is he an expert in this, and he's been coaching people in executive teams to work on this, but I want you to consider not only is that where you need to go and what you need to be able to do eventually, but you need to start working on those skills now. And there's probably a greater need for leadership skills and collaborative skills and entry-level jobs in an AI world than we ever saw before. So I'm going to put Dr. Gladis on the spot and ask him a little bit about, a lot of this is incredibly helpful when we think about executive work and when we think about in the workplace. I'm wondering about how do we implement this in group projects. You all are going to have a project, and we've said a little bit about this, the pitch process, where you're going to be working in small groups. This is the prelude to that, because I really want you to think about how do you form those groups, how do you work effectively in those groups, and knowing a bit about this I think is going to be helpful, but how do they take this and scale it down to something that's going to be a matter of weeks instead of someplace where they're working for years?
Sure. I think what you need to do is first of all, think about how you trust each other. Find out where everybody in your group is at before you start the project. People are floating down the river, and they're all in different places, right? We're all in different boats. Your mother may have died, your brother may be sick, your husband may be this, your brother. I don't know what's going on in your life. You don't know what's going on in my life. So find out from some people. Some people can't contribute the way that you want them. That's one thing I would do is I'd do just like we did in the hospital. We'd introduce each other and say, what's going on in our lives? So I know what your strengths might be, because you might say, look, I'm really good at collecting data. I'd inventory the group first. The first thing I'd do. I would try to set up a set of rules. What do you want to do? Just raise up some of the issues I had here. Can we tell the truth to each other? When somebody's not performing, what do you want to do? Because that's going to happen. It happens in every group I've ever done. I made my students grade each other anonymously to me in each group, 1 through 5, in 3 or 4 different sections. Did the person do work? Did his work? Did they deliver it on time? And were they easy to work with? And it was 1 through, and that was 10 or 15% of their grade. So everybody had a score, and I gave them the scores. I wanted them to see what their peers thought of them, in an honest way. So I think it's really about trying to figure out what are your people's strengths in the group. Spend some time up front, not on the project, but on the group itself. Look at some of the things. Do we have a strategy? What are we going to do? What are some of our... I would look at this as a check sheet, not perfectly, but spend some time on the group before you dive into the project. Does that make sense? All right. Give me a hooah. Oh, all right. I think that makes more sense. Usually kids dive in and they go, okay, you do part 1, you do part 2, you do part 3, and I go, okay, let's go. And I would say, I'd spend some real time with each other, go get a cup of coffee, talk about each other, find out what you're good at, what you're not, what your connections are, and what you like to do. And then try to assign each other around that. And if you want to play leader, you say, would you like me to coordinate? Or who would like to coordinate? Just make sure it's not always the loudest person. The loudest person is not always the smartest person. Confidence is not competence. Okay? I want to see your grades.
That's great. I want to open it up for any other questions that you all have. Do you have questions for Dr. Gladis? Anything about any of these items, or thinking about group projects or your own leadership? I have another question about leadership and group projects, but I don't want to crowd out any other questions you might have. You're wondering about? I guess one thing that I've experienced when we have small group communication or we have group projects, typically people think of leadership as there's a leader and then there are followers. But it's more complicated than that, right? So if they're thinking about, they're going to have these groups of about 6 people, what does leadership look like in a group like that when they have a lot they need to get done in a short period of time? And there's nobody assigned as a leader. It's not like in a workplace where you're my supervisor, I know you're the leader. How do they develop that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. That's called teaming when you're put together. It happens all the time in business. I think, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, which is spending time talking about what you're good at, what you see this project being. Spending time talking about the project and about the group itself up front. I'm trying to think of Deloitte. I think it's Deloitte. What Deloitte does is it has everybody on a team take the Myers-Briggs and take the StrengthsFinders before they actually do the project. on matrix teams are where they just put you together like you're doing here, solve a problem, and then you disband. But they have them take an assessment, and then they spend the first half day together going through what they're good at, what they like to do, what don't they like to do, who likes to lead, who likes to follow. Does anybody have a strong urge here to help or not help? You know, to lead or not lead. They kind of go through a session with each other, trying to figure out what makes some sense before they dive into it. Otherwise, you sometimes get the wrong person leading the group. Yeah, it's not easy. Forming groups is not simple. It's not easy. We do it all the time in academia without realizing how stressful it really can be. In my classes, and I did this over the years, oftentimes somebody would emerge, but that person wasn't always the best person for it. I let groups work it out, but I also let them appeal to me if they had a real problem. I let them come up to me, and then I would talk to the group and say, hey, listen, doesn't seem like it's working. Let's figure out a way to make it work for you guys for the rest of the semester. But I tried not to get into refereeing too many fistfights.
I think you're right. I mean, the danger we sometimes have as faculty members assigning groups, we sometimes put you in bad positions, right, to be able to figure out how do you navigate that as a group. So I want to be a little more thoughtful about that and a little more intentional in the way we have that process for you all. We will have more discussion about how we're going to select problem areas first, and then let you select the problem groups within your section of the class so that maybe there's even a chance to share some of these strengths or concerns, maybe your preferences for the way you're going to work together, so that you go into it eyes open about what that's going to look like or what it is that your concerns might be. And we've all had groups where somebody's the loafer. And there are times we've all been the loafer too, right? And so that happens. But we have to figure out how you're going to be able to navigate that. And I want to make sure that you're all set up so you can do that more effectively. Well, we're just about out of time. Join me in thanking Dr. Gladis for this. Great. Thank you, everybody. We'll stick around a couple more minutes if you have any questions. We'll see you back in person next